Lynette Duncan, D-U-N-C-A-N. First of all, I just want to pass some photos. This is my mom and her new husband a few years ago. She's a little older now. This is last photo taken of my dad. Can't see him very well, but he was an avid fisherman and loved to camp and was full of life. This is a picture of me when it happened. I was 17 years old. This is the family I remember. That's when we were all intact. And then this is my sister that died.
Where is she in this photo?
She's the oldest. We didn't have a lot of family photos taken. That was the only one. So it's circa 1967. That's us. I have two victim impact statements that I'm going to read. The first one is my mom's. She wrote this and is not able to give it. Just not mentally strong enough. My name is Lynette Duncan Ballard. I am a victim of Brett Thomas. 33 years ago, I testified at his preliminary hearing and was traumatized all over again. Thus, I'm letting my daughter read my statement, as I never want to see him again. On January 29, 1977, my life changed forever. I had a great life. My husband was a business owner who worked hard to provide for us and our 4 daughters. We did things as a family, had good friends, went camping. We were happy. Then because of Brett Thomas, my life changed. All I did was open the door. I heard a noise. I looked out the window and saw a car by our cars. Just 2 weeks prior, someone had vandalized one of our cars. So I thought it was happening again. I thought I was just going to yell at vandals. All I did was open the door. I first saw Aubrey lying dead. I thought to myself, someone killed Aubrey for money. Then I heard a blast. I fell back. I called to Denise to stay back, but she was already shot. More blasts came. I was shot 3 times with the .22. One barely missed my heart, spine, and lungs. Another pierced my diaphragm in 2 places in my spleen. Then there were the shotgun blasts. I had 187 birdshot pellets in my legs. I don't remember how long I stayed down. I don't even know if I remained conscious. When I heard a car leave, I crawled into the house. Our phone was a wall phone. I tried to stand. I dialed the operator and collapsed to the floor. The pain was unbearable. Thank you. The police wanted me to have my daughter wrap my legs in a towel. Donna was the first to come out. She was only 11. I told her to get Lynette and then go to the Areola's house across the street. When Lynette came out, I had her get me a towel and check on Donna. I knew Aubrey was dead because when the police arrived, they walked past him and began checking on Denise. Then I heard someone say, "There's a live one on the phone." My body was in shock and the paramedics couldn't get the IV in as my veins were collapsing. I overheard a doctor on the radio tell the paramedics, "Just bring her in now or she won't make it." When the ambulance arrived at the ER, the doctor climbed into the back and began working on me immediately. I understand I almost died twice in surgery. I still have many pellets in my legs. After recovering, I had to figure out how to support my family. My husband owned a pool hall and a laundromat, neither of which is commonly run by a woman. Many people told me to sell them, that I couldn't run them. However, Aubrey had many business owner friends in the Kiwanis Club. They advised me to try. If it doesn't work, then I could make a different decision. I began running both businesses. It wasn't easy. I took a class on washing machine repairs, so I could make many of the repairs myself. I became successful with the businesses, but I would rather have remained a wife, mother, and PTA volunteer. It's been a very hard life. Eventually, I met a good man and remarried, but I will always miss the life that was taken away from me. My husband and daughter will never get a second chance at life. Neither should Brett Thomas. He made his decision when he shot us. And that's her statement. Then there's mine, if that wasn't hard enough. I can still hear the sound of the gunshot. It woke me from a sound sleep. I had never heard gunshot before. I tried to pass it off as a car backfiring, but it kept happening over and over. Every sound pierced my soul. From where my room was, I could hear the gunshot really well, but I couldn't hear my mom talking to the police on the phone. My 11-year-old sister Donna could. She burst into my room in hysterics and yelled, "Lynette, Lynette, get up. Mom, Dad, and niece have all been shot." I was only 17. I flew out of bed. I first saw my mom. She was lying in a pool of blood. My mom had been shot with a .22 in 3 places. A shotgun blast riddled 187 birdshot pellets into her legs. All she did was open the front door to find out what the sound was. My mom was shot, fell back, and my sister, who was following behind her, was also shot. After my mom heard the car drive off, she crawled approximately 20 feet into the kitchen and somehow stood up to dial the police on the wall phone. The police wanted me to wrap a towel around her legs so she wouldn't bleed out while lying there on the floor. I tried to run to the linen closet to grab a towel, but stopped short when I crossed the entranceway. There was my sister Denise lying unconscious. She was hit only once with a stray bullet, but it was right in her heart. She died an hour and a half later in the hospital ER. I could also see my dad. He had been shot in the back while trying to enter the house. He was lying in a pool of blood. There was so much blood. Finally got a towel to wrap. I finally got my mom the towel, and I ran out of the house to check on Donna. She had run across the street to the safety of the neighbor's house. In order to get out of the house, we had to physically jump over my dad's lifeless body and all of his blood. He was completely covering the front steps. Jumping over him was the only way out. I prayed I didn't miss and land in his blood. After finding that Donna was okay, I ran back out to the middle of the street and began screaming. It was a deep, primal scream. I could hear the sirens coming closer and closer. They were coming from all directions, all heading for my house. It would be years before I could again hear a siren and not revert to a panic attack for fear it was happening to yet another family. An hour or so later, I was at my neighbor's house. It was the police department's temporary command post, and the police were everywhere. I clearly remember walking into the kitchen. All I could see was a sea of police uniforms. As soon as they saw me, they began leaving the room one by one. Finally, one officer was left. He asked me to sit down. Slowly, he began to say, "Lynette, your dad and sister." He paused looking for words. I answered, "Didn't make it?" He responded, "No, they didn't make it, but your mom's going to be okay." As I was processing his words, he then added, "Now go in the bedroom and tell your little sister." I wanted to say I can't, but before those words can come out, I realized I had to, because I didn't want her to hear it from him. I went to the back bedroom and found her hiding in the closet. To this day, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. Another younger sister, Yvonne, age 14, was at a sleepover that night. About 6 a.m., my bishop and I went over there and gave her the news. My bishop helped me deliver that one. Later that morning, I called John Rose. It was Denise's fiance, with the news. It destroyed his life also. Next came my grandmother, aunts, uncles, close family friends. At age 17, I was delivering death notifications. I tried to go to school that Monday just to have some semblance of order, but was called out of class. My bishop picked me up as I had to plan a funeral. Most young people have wonderful memories of their first big purchase, a nice pre-owned car. My first big purchase, however, was 2 cemetery plots, 2 caskets, 2 headstones, and 2 embalmings. Not a wonderful memory. Life was very difficult after that. My family, which previously spent many weekends camping or visiting friends, ceased to exist. My mom checked out emotionally. The rest of us found families of close friends to emotionally adopt. We couldn't help each other heal because we were all just surviving and needing help ourselves. I would love to know my dad and sister as adults. In the 1970s, therapy wasn't offered or even suggested. You were supposed to just suck it up and move on. Some things one cannot suck up. I lived with undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder, hate, anger, and extreme fear, all while being emotionally stuck at 17. Of all of these, the fear was the most debilitating. When you don't feel safe in your own home, you don't feel safe anywhere. Fear controlled my every waking hour, what jobs I could work, what movies I could watch, and where I could live. I have many wonderful friends and family here in Southern California, but I can't live here. The fear is still very prevalent for me here. My 20s are mainly a blur to me because of the trauma. In my 30s, I became a mom and decided I needed to get well for my 2 daughters. I've spent many years and a lot of money in therapy. I'm finally doing well, and I feel I finally have most of my life back. I am fearful, however, that if Brett Thomas is released, the fear will return tenfold. It is because of this very real fear that my other family members aren't here today also testifying. They have never received the therapy they all need, and are still unable to face him. It's also why I have not mentioned the state where I live. He doesn't need to know that information. I know my life would be different today if the homicide never happened. Even my daughters would have very different lives, because as this affected me, or as this affected them by affecting me, this could very easily have repercussions for generations to come. My name might not be listed on the as a victim on the police report, but I am a victim. Today, under Marsy's law, there is no doubt that I am a victim. I was always a victim. My mom and sisters are victims. My family unit is a victim. My sister's fiance, who 34 years later is still alone and has never been able to move forward, he's a victim. All estimated 1,000 family and friends who took time out of their jobs and busy lives to attend a funeral on a Tuesday afternoon are victims. Because of this man, Brett Thomas, who at age 18 years old, left a lot of destroyed lives in his wake. Also in the 1970s, victims didn't have rights. It was only 2 months ago that I found out how to even ascertain if they were still incarcerated. For years, my family assumed they'd probably been paroled, and not knowing was easier than knowing and having to face the fear. So we just buried our head in the sand and pretended everything was fine. I'm tired of being his victim. I am here to face him, only he's not here. I'm ready to stand up for myself, my dad, my mom, my sisters, including Denise. I'm standing here for her fiancé, John, and all of thousands of people who were terrorized by this man. I've flown in from another state, many flight hours away, spending close to $1,000 and 3 days of vacation time because this is important. My employer did not have coverage for that time away and closed the office for 3 days so I could attend this hearing. This was at a great expense, but they also realized the need for his denial. Further, due to an impending snowstorm that could have caused a flight cancellation, I was forced to fly in early just for this hearing. I spent Christmas Eve on an airplane away from my daughters, one of whom I had not seen in a year, as she is serving our country in the Air Force. I would have preferred to spend Christmas with them, but this is too important. I will then turn around in June and do the same thing for his crime partner. Had I known about the prior parole hearings, I would have attended those also. Brett Thomas knew the consequences of his actions, and that is why he tried so hard not to leave any witnesses. He could have just asked my dad for the money. He would have given it to him. Or better yet, gotten a job like everybody else. But by choosing to murder him, he chose his life sentence. The judge gave him the maximum allowed by law at that time. If the crime were to be committed today, there would never be a parole hearing. He would have been given a death sentence or life without the possibility of parole. A life sentence should be for life. Just because the law didn't allow for life without the possibility of parole does not mean the crime doesn't warrant that sentence. It's now up to you to carry out this justice. I assume by reading in other, and also by reading in prior transcripts that I've received that he claims that he has changed his life around. And you know, I'm really glad that he has. And I think he can do a lot of good helping other people in prison. That's where he belongs. If he is paroled, I will be victimized all over again, as will my family and the families of Laura Stoughton and Ephraim Christensen. The fear is very real. Further, he has clearly demonstrated a lack of conscience, a lack of value for human life. No one should ever have to live through the hell that my family and I have been through. The only way to guarantee that he will never do this to another family is to keep him incarcerated. Being Christmas time, I've been listening to a lot of my favorite Christmas carols in the past few weeks. The one that always stops me, just right in my tracks, is my grown-up Christmas list. There's a line in the chorus that says, "No more lives torn apart." How many lives need to be torn apart before we stop allowing it to continue? Not counting the thousands of lives that were affected in some way. I'm just counting the lives torn apart. There were 6 lives torn apart in my immediate family. Then add my sister's fiance, that's 7. My grandmother makes 8. Now we have the Stoughton family. An additional 8 makes 16. I do not have any information on Ephraim Christian's family, but he alone makes 17. That's at least 17 lives torn apart. Society can't afford anymore. He's too big of a risk. I also request that you set his next parole hearing date for 15 years, as allowed by Marsy's law. And also, please, not Christmas week. Please, not Christmas week. I shouldn't have to miss another Christmas with my daughters because of this man. Thank you.